Summary of the life and career of Suleiman the Magnificent, the greatest Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Chapter 1, Childhood and Education. Suleiman, later called the Magnificent in the West and Kanuni, the lawgiver, in the Ottoman Empire, was born on November 6, 1494, in Trabzon, a strategic port city on the Black Sea coast. His father was Selim I, who later ascended as Sultan with a stern and ruthless character. His mother, Hafsa Sultan, was a concubine of Crimean Tatar or Caucasian origin. After the death of his two older brothers, Suleiman became the potential heir at a young age. From the age of 7, he was sent to Constantinople, now Istanbul, to study at the schools within the Topkapi Palace, the educational center for Ottoman princes. There, he received a comprehensive education, studying the Quran, Islamic theology, Sharia law, mathematics, astronomy, Persian literature, the scholarly language of that time. He also learned Arabic and Old Turkish, enhancing his multicultural knowledge. Alongside academics, Suleiman underwent rigorous training in martial arts, horseback riding, archery, fencing, and hunting, essential skills for a future king. He quickly demonstrated exceptional abilities in both intellect and physical prowess, becoming an outstanding horseman and a promising warrior. What set Suleiman apart was his passion for poetry. Under the pen name Muhibbi, the lover, he composed hundreds of poems in Ottoman and Persian, revealing his inner depth and philosophical thinking. Poetry was not just an art form for him but a means of dialogue with himself and the world. Growing up in the multi-ethnic environment of Trabzon and Istanbul, where Turks, Greeks, Armenians, and Jews coexisted, Suleiman developed a tolerant religious outlook, which later became evident in his rule. However, the shadow of his father's power and ruthlessness, who had eliminated his own brothers to secure the throne, made Suleiman realize early on that the Ottoman throne was not guaranteed by bloodline but had to be earned through capability and caution. Chapter 2, Early Years as Governor. In 1511, at the age of 17, Suleiman was appointed by his father, Selim I, as the governor of Kaffa, a strategic port city on the Crimean Peninsula. This was a culturally and ethnically complex region, home to Crimean Tatars, Genoese merchants, and Muslim communities. Here, Suleiman learned to manage administration, collect taxes, control the port, and ensure security against threats from pirates and foreign traders. This was his first real experience in governance and being tested as a regional administrator. After his time in Crimea, Suleiman was transferred to Manisa, a prosperous province in western Anatolia, traditionally a training ground for Ottoman princes. In Manisa, he oversaw agricultural activities, tax collection, local military management, and civil dispute resolution. This period also allowed him to build relationships with the bureaucratic and military elite, many of whom later became loyal allies in his court. In Manisa, Suleiman began his family life with his concubines, including Mahidevran Hatun, who gave birth to his eldest son, Seytsad Mustafa, a prince expected to succeed him later. In addition to Manisa, he briefly served in Edirne, a city near the European border, where he observed military and administrative issues in the Balkans. This exposure helped him better understand the empire's defensive role in the West. His years as governor not only provided Suleiman with administrative and political experience but also honed his leadership skills, teaching him that to maintain the Ottoman throne, one needed more than lineage, it required understanding, preparation, and decisiveness. Chapter 3, Ascension to the Throne and the Beginning of His Reign. On September 22, 1520, Sultan Selim I died suddenly while on a military campaign in Anatolia, possibly from infection or illness. At that time, Suleiman was in Manisa. Upon hearing of his father's death, he quickly set out for Constantinople and was enthroned as the 10th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire on September 30 of the same year. The coronation took place at the Hagia Sophia Mosque with solemn ceremonies attended by religious, political figures, and foreign envoys. 3 royal galleys flying the Ottoman flag were mobilized at the port as a symbol of the continuation of sovereignty. The Venetian envoy Bartolomeo Contarini described Suleiman as a tall, slender young man with a refined face, sparse beard, but exuding intelligence and determination. Unlike his father, Suleiman ascended the throne in a rare context of stability. He faced no rivals for succession within the royal family, as Selim I had eliminated almost all of his brothers and nephews to secure the throne for his son. This allowed Suleiman to focus on consolidating power and establishing a solid political foundation from the beginning of his reign. Immediately after his accession, Suleiman quickly demonstrated his leadership capabilities. He retained capable ministers from his father's time, such as Piri Mehmed Pasha, while showing flexibility in his dealings, being open to scholars and the public. Without rushing into sudden changes, he gradually adjusted the state apparatus, clearly intending to build a strong yet sustainable dynasty. His smooth ascension, combined with his inherent talent and experience as a governor, allowed Suleiman to start his reign with a solid position, ready for territorial expansion and profound reforms in the decades to come. Chapter 4: Early Conquests. Shortly after ascending the throne, Suleiman quickly proved his superior military capabilities through a series of large-scale campaigns aimed at expanding Ottoman territory into Europe and the Mediterranean. In 1521, he launched a campaign to capture Belgrade, the strategic fortress of the Kingdom of Hungary, known as the gateway to Central Europe. The siege was fierce, involving heavy artillery, tunneling, and bombardment from an island on the Danube River. Despite having only about 700 defenders and no reinforcements, Belgrade held out for weeks before surrendering on August 29. This victory opened the way for the Ottomans to advance deeper into Europe and turned Belgrade into a crucial military outpost. Immediately afterward, Suleiman turned his attention to the island of Rhodes, controlled by the Knights Hospitaller, a force that had caused significant damage to Ottoman merchant ships. From June to December 1522, over 100,000 Ottoman troops besieged the fortress of Rhodes. Despite their valiant resistance, the knights eventually surrendered after Suleiman guaranteed their safe withdrawal and freedom for the island's inhabitants. This victory not only strengthened Ottoman dominance in the Mediterranean but also demonstrated Suleiman's magnanimous and honorable leadership style. The pinnacle of his early reign was the Battle of Mohacs in 1526. With a force of about 70,000 troops, Suleiman confronted the Hungarian army led by King Louis II. Thanks to clever battle tactics and superior artillery, the Ottomans achieved an overwhelming victory in just a few hours. Louis II was killed while fleeing, leading to the collapse of the Jagiellon dynasty and the division of Hungary into three parts: the central region under Ottoman control, the western part under the Habsburgs, and Transylvania as a semi-independent principality under Ottoman influence. These three major campaigns not only expanded territory but also made Suleiman's name resound throughout Europe as an unstoppable conqueror, ushering in an era of Ottoman supremacy on both land and sea. Chapter 5: Legal and Administrative Reforms. Beyond his military prowess, Suleiman was also revered as Kanuni, the lawgiver, for his profound legal and administrative reforms, which laid the foundation for the stable operation of the Ottoman Empire for centuries. Before his time, Ottoman law was a fragmented mix of Islamic law, Sharia, Turkish customary law, Urf, and local regulations from conquered territories. To address this fragmentation, Suleiman, with the counsel of Grand Mufti Abbasid Effendi, unified these regulations into the Kanun Code. This code covered criminal, civil, land management, taxation, and administrative laws. The Kanun did not replace Sharia but operated alongside it, creating a legal system that was both religious and practical. He also reformed the administrative apparatus, emphasizing the appointment of officials based on merit rather than lineage. Suleiman expanded the system of official examinations, increased tax audits, and curbed corruption. Local governors were more closely monitored, while the central government was strengthened through a dedicated team of clerks and inspectors. In social matters, Suleiman issued decrees protecting the rights of minorities, notably rejecting the blood libel accusations against Jews, which had led to massacres in Europe. He also had policies to free Christian peasants from serfdom in some Balkan regions, helping to ease social discontent and garner loyalty from non-Muslim communities. The efficiency and flexibility of these reforms enabled the Ottomans to maintain power over a vast and diverse territory. The Kanun Code continued to be applied for over 300 years after Suleiman's death, demonstrating the timeless success of his legal policies. Chapter 6: Family Life and Succession Conflicts. Alongside his military and political career, Suleiman's personal life was tumultuous, especially regarding succession, which had been a source of tragedy in the Ottoman royal family for centuries. Suleiman had two significant women in his life, Mahidevran Hatun and Hürrem Sultan. Mahidevran, a concubine of Caucasian origin, was the mother of Sayyid Saad Mustafa, the talented eldest prince, beloved by the army and once seen as the ideal successor. However, Mustafa's position was gradually threatened when Hürrem Sultan, a clever and astute slave of Ruthenian origin, captured Suleiman's full affection. Around 1533 to 1534, Suleiman broke royal tradition by officially marrying Hürrem as his legal wife. She bore him 5 children, including Selim, Bayezid, Miraima, and Mehmed, who later became directly involved in the succession struggle. The conflict between the two branches of heirs led to a severe crisis within the royal family. In 1553, during a military campaign in Persia, Suleiman ordered the execution of Mustafa on suspicion of treason, possibly influenced by Hürrem and Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha. Mustafa's death shocked the entire empire, sparking deep suspicion and mourning among the public and the army. Some of Suleiman's later poems reveal his profound torment over this decision. After Mustafa's death, the remaining 2 princes, Selim and Bayezid, vied for influence. Bayezid rebelled and fled to Persia but was captured and executed along with his 4 sons in 1561. Selim too, the only surviving son, later succeeded but was deemed less capable. Suleiman's relationship with Pargali Ibrahim Pasha, his childhood friend and first Grand Vizier, also ended tragically. Ibrahim was executed in 1536 on suspicion of treason, despite being a key figure in the empire. These family losses left Suleiman with deep sorrow, which he expressed through poetry. Behind a glorious reign, his personal life reflected the tragedy of power. Chapter 7: Major Military Campaigns. After the initial victories at Belgrade, Rhodes, and Mohacs, Suleiman continued to expand his territory with strategically significant military campaigns in Central Europe, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. In 1529, he led over 100,000 troops to besiege Vienna, the capital of the Habsburgs, to assert control over Hungary. However, bad weather, unfavorable terrain, and staunch defense led to the campaign's failure. Although he did not capture the city, the siege marked the first time a Muslim army reached the heart of Europe, shocking the West. On the Eastern Front, Suleiman confronted the Safavid Empire of Persia, a Shia Muslim rival. From 1534 to 1555, he launched 3 major campaigns. In the first, the Ottomans captured Baghdad and all of Mesopotamia. The subsequent campaigns consolidated control over eastern Anatolia. After years of conflict, the two sides signed the Peace of Amasya in 1555, the first treaty to establish a lasting border between the two Muslim empires, with the Ottomans emerging victorious. At sea, under the command of Hayreddin Barbarossa, the Ottoman navy became the most powerful force in the Mediterranean. In 1538, at the Battle of Preveza, despite being outnumbered, Barbarossa defeated the Christian alliance led by Admiral Andrea Doria. This victory allowed the Ottomans to control almost the entire Mediterranean for decades. Additionally, Suleiman extended his influence to the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean to counter Portuguese naval aggression. The Ottomans captured strategic ports like Aden and Muscat, protecting Muslim trade routes across Asia and Africa. Although not all campaigns were entirely successful, Suleiman expanded and defended the empire across 3 continents. He established the Ottoman Empire as a military superpower, controlling vast lands and dominating the seas, becoming an undeniable rival to the Habsburgs, Safavids, and European powers. Chapter 8: Diplomatic Relations and Trade. Suleiman was not only a conqueror and lawgiver but also a shrewd diplomatic strategist. He made the Ottoman Empire a center of power not just through force but through trade and astute political alliances. One of his most notable moves was allying with France, a Christian nation, under King Francis I. Facing the Habsburgs, both Suleiman and Francis shared strategic interests. In 1536, they signed a trade and military treaty, granting French merchants tax exemptions in Ottoman ports, while the Ottomans supported France against the Habsburgs on land and sea. This was one of the first Muslim-Christian alliances in modern history. Additionally, Suleiman maintained stable trade relations with Venice and Poland, allowing European goods to flow through Istanbul to Asia and vice versa. Agreements ensured foreign merchants were protected, creating a vast trade network from the Middle East to the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. To the east, Suleiman expanded maritime influence to the Red Sea and Indian Ocean to counter the Portuguese navy. Strategic ports like Aden and Muscat were captured, safeguarding Muslim trade routes from India to Cairo and Istanbul. As a result, the Ottomans controlled many vital trade routes connecting 3 continents. Trade flourished under his rule, with goods such as spices, silk, weapons, glass, and coffee exchanged throughout the empire. Suleiman built hundreds of caravanserais, merchant rest stops, large markets, and a rational taxation system, encouraging both internal and international trade. More importantly, his policy of religious tolerance made the Ottoman Empire a refuge for Jews, Christians, and other minorities from across Europe. This stable, multicultural environment turned his empire into the largest economic, political, and commercial center in the Muslim world during the 16th century. Chapter 9: Culture, Education, and Science. Under Suleiman's reign, the Ottoman Empire entered a golden age of culture, art, education, and science, often regarded as the Islamic Renaissance of the empire. As a patron of the arts and a poet himself, he helped bring Ottoman civilization to its zenith. The most prominent symbol is the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul, an architectural masterpiece by Mimar Sinan, the greatest Ottoman architect. This structure was not only a place of worship but also integrated a hospital, library, school, and public kitchen, reflecting a holistic approach to social welfare and religion. Suleiman expanded the network of madrasas, Islamic schools, training scholars, officials, and judges. Besides theology and Islamic law, subjects like mathematics, astronomy, literature, medicine, and philosophy were taught. This system produced an intellectual class that served both the administrative and judicial branches of the empire. He was also a poet under the pen name Muhibbi, composing hundreds of poems in Ottoman and Persian, showcasing his profound soul, love, and philosophy. His poetry collection is one of the most important literary legacies of Muslim rulers in the medieval period. In science, Ottoman physicians and scholars made significant advances in surgery, pharmacology, and medical hygiene, particularly in major hospitals in Istanbul and Edirne. In astronomy, scholars continued the tradition of star observation and calendar making from classical Islamic civilization. Notably, in geography and navigation, Piri Reis's 1513 map accurately depicted the coastlines of the Americas and Africa, showing that the Ottomans were keeping pace with contemporary geographical advancements. His book Kitab-i-Bari became a standard navigational reference in the Mediterranean region. Suleiman's reign fostered a multicultural, multi-ethnic civilization where art, architecture, and knowledge were nurtured by stability, tolerance, and the celebration of scholarship, leaving a lasting mark not only on Ottoman history but also on the memory of human civilization. Chapter 10: Death and Legacy. In 1566, at the age of 71, despite declining health due to gout, Suleiman personally led the siege of Sigetvar fortress in Hungary. On September 6 of that year, he died quietly in his command tent just before the Ottoman forces breached the fortress. His death was kept secret for weeks to maintain the army's morale. Grand Vizier Sokalum Mehmed Pasha managed affairs during the transition. Suleiman's body was embalmed and taken back to Istanbul, while his heart and internal organs were buried at Sigetvar, which later became a shrine and pilgrimage site. He was laid to rest in the grounds of the Süleymaniye Mosque, next to the architectural masterpiece that bears his name. Suleiman's reign lasted 46 years, the longest in Ottoman history, and is considered the peak of military, legal, and cultural achievements. Under his rule, the empire reached its greatest territorial extent, from Hungary to Yemen, from North Africa to the Persian Gulf. He was not only a conquering warrior but also a reforming ruler. The Kanun Code, developed and systematized during his time, provided a solid legal foundation. This code remained in use for over 300 years and influenced legal systems in many modern Muslim countries. Culturally, architecturally, and educationally, Suleiman left behind magnificent structures like the Süleymaniye Mosque, caravanserais, schools, and hospitals, reflecting his vision of governance tied to social welfare. Most importantly, he pursued a policy of religious tolerance, protecting the rights of Jews, Christians, and other minorities, creating a stable, pluralistic environment, unlike many European kingdoms of the time, which were embroiled in religious wars. Suleiman was called the Magnificent in the West, not just for his territorial conquests but for his stature as a comprehensive leader. His name lives on in history as a model of power, wisdom, and a timeless legacy. Chapter 11, Modern Influence. More than 450 years after Suleiman's death, his legacy remains vivid in the modern world, from legal systems to popular culture and political symbolism. Legally, the Kanun code he enacted was a significant milestone in the modernization of law in the Muslim world. Although Turkey has since adopted Western legal systems, the spirit of rule of law and unity that Kanun brought is still seen as foundational in legislative thinking. Some countries, such as Egypt and North African nations, were also influenced by the legal system during Suleiman's time. In popular culture, his image has been vividly recreated through the famous Turkish TV series Muhibbi Yüzyıl, The Magnificent Century, which has attracted hundreds of millions of viewers worldwide. The series not only revived the golden age of the Ottomans but also introduced Suleiman to a modern audience as a king who was both powerful and emotionally rich, providing a fresh perspective on Islamic history. The architectural works he sponsored, especially the Süleymaniye Mosque, remain top religious and tourist destinations in Istanbul. Not only is it Suleiman's resting place, but the Süleymaniye also symbolizes the golden age of architecture and urban planning linked to community welfare. Suleiman's leadership philosophy, combining strong power, legal reform, and tolerance, is seen as an ideal model in modern political studies, especially in the context of cultural pluralism and global religious conflicts. His name is mentioned in textbooks, theories, films, and research as a great symbol of the fusion between the sword and the sage, between king and poet, between conqueror and creator of order. Suleiman is not just a 16th-century king but a living legacy of a historical period that shaped the Muslim world and the rest of humanity.